What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another solo leveling Alicia Tan video. Alright guys, we have ourselves a brand new testing video which is going to test every single SSR weapon in the game. Alright, so a couple things I want to point out. Number one, the weapon of choice that we're going to use every single time is going to be the Plum Sword. I know a lot of you guys complained that the Moonshadow daggers were used when I did Zeke's and I did the test with Scythe. I can comfortably tell you guys now the Plum Sword does make a difference, obviously, so you guys will see some crazier numbers. Number two, we're going to keep everything consistent, so we're going to use the same setup for JINWOO as we did before. All strength, same blessing stones, nothing will change there. I will not use any skills at any time, no ultimates, no shadow steps, no skills. It's just the weapon skills only throughout the entire fight. The stats will never change. These will remain the same because I'm going to be using the same artifacts across the board, so everything here will remain the same, and it is always going to be the guild boss by myself solo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 5 fights for each weapon and give you guys the results at the end. Now, you're going to see a couple clips of each video as I do the fights to show you guys kind of where things stand. You'll be surprised at some of these results. Hell, I was. And then we're going to tally up a total number and provide you guys that number at the end of the video and give you a summary from the top 10 weapons from the best to the worst, essentially, right? Now, the one thing I will say is the Moonshadow daggers and the Plum Sword are going to be rolled into the same thing. Realistically, I can't test the Plum outside of the Moon and the Moon outside of the Plum, so we're going to put them as the same numbers. There's going to be variations. Now, I want to say this right now, ahead of time before we start the video. There are going to be issues with this testing. There always is. There's no 100% test dummy. There's nothing I can really do to change the results properly here. I'm giving you guys what I can out of 5 fights. And remember, not every set or not every weapon is going to thrive with the curse set. There's going to be obviously better sets that will, you know, make a difference for some of these weapons. We're not going to do that. We're just going to plain numbers with what we have, with no changes, with the raw data available for you guys for 5 fights. So without further ado, guys, let's start it off, and we're going to do actually with Zeke's Fragment first and then work our way down. I'll show you guys a spreadsheet in that video. All right, guys, see you guys in a bit. Alright guys, I'm back here real quick just to show you guys the last number I got for the actual Zeke Fragment. So these are the numbers I've been working now. This is my 5th battle right here. You guys can see it's very consistent. We're hitting roughly about like 82 million for the most part. Like this one hit 82, a little bit lower on the 82 scale. I've almost hit 83 at one point. Had a couple different moves happen. Going across the screen, for example, is something he doesn't do very often, but he did. Fuck nah, bro, you're messing things up for me. But either way, we're looking pretty consistent. So this is now, again, using the Plum Sword, right? So at the end of the day, the Zeke Fragment is actually doing better, and that's what I was telling you guys earlier, than with the Shadow Moon Blades. I was using Shadow Moon Blades because I knew it would be less damage, but now we're getting even more damage. So now moving on over to the Skadi next. So we'll be doing this. What I also wanted to real quick add this as well too. I put in the main skill level for each of these. So we're going to, again, compensate a little bit for that because some of them are level 10s, some of them level 8, 7s, etc. So we'll take a little bit margin off of the score, or add a little bit more to the score at the end of it all. All right, guys, here is the last number for the Skadi. Now, honestly, not surprised with this damage, 52 million. Not obviously the greatest weapon, even with the buff. Now, the biggest issue, of course, here stands the fact that the weapon cannot freeze this boss, I think, which is a big part of where some of this extra, damage CC will come from. But the Skadi is obviously way inferior when it comes down to the Zeke's Fragment. So I just want to show you guys the last numbers here that I got for this one. We're working on getting the rest of these out of the way. So next up is going to be the Phoenix Bow. Now, this is the one I'm mostly curious about because this was the strongest weapon previous to the actual Zeke Fragment coming out. So I'm very, very curious where this is going to go. Now, remember, this is an A10. We'll give it a little bit more of a leeway here. We'll probably raise these up by a couple million. I'll do the total and give it maybe like a couple more million. Give it maybe a 3%, 4% increase because it is still an A10. It is though missing the main skill being level 7 versus 10, which is again a pretty big margin of damage. So we will give it again a little bit more percentage, but you guys obviously can see that percentage will not make a difference compared to the two of these, right? So let's move on to the Phoenix Bow and see how this one goes. So I'm going to exit here, jump into the Phoenix Bow. Now the Phoenix Bow is also level 10 skill. So I'll show you guys at least the first battle maybe. Let's watch the first one together and you guys can kind of see how this works. And then you guys can check out the I'll do the last ones again. I'll show you guys what the number looks like at the end, so you guys can kind of get a general sense of where we are with this one. But I do want to run this one specifically because I was very curious at how this was gonna do overall. So let's go ahead and jump in. Let's just see. I hope they fix the actual the hitbox because that was really the biggest issue with this weapon. His hitbox was just missing everything left and right, and honestly the fact that it also does have a very long cooldown doesn't really help it as well too. But we're gonna try to go ahead and maximize this. Now, the beauty of this weapon compared to the last ones I've used is the range, obviously. Now, Zeke's Fragment obviously has really good range, but Phoenix Bow obviously has superior range in this regard. So I'm hoping that this will be a good competitor to Zeke's Fragment in terms of the best DPS weapon in the game, because we had a lot of high hopes for this weapon, and I'm still under the impression that it will be one of the strongest, if not the second strongest weapon that is currently out in the game, but we're going to find out very soon. So you guys can see this is how I'm running this. Same as I would run all the other ones. The only difference, of course, is using a different weapon. Sometimes I do have to rely on the Plum's basic attacks to get some MP back, but that's really about it. Everything else really belongs to the main weapon that we're testing. This is the stupidest attack. This attack takes so much time. I hate this. This happened with Zeke's at 1.2. Caused me to delay a little bit of my attack. So this is kind of like, the game is the game, right? I can't help that. So we're gonna have to consider some of these things as, you know, part of the testing. But there are obviously going to be some errors and margins that we have to consider, like this, like when, you know, he does random skills like that where he wouldn't do it for other weapons. But that's why we're doing 5 tests instead of 1 this time, just so everybody has a little bit more numbers to play with, and it makes a little more sense for everyone. Okay, there you guys go. I mean, it's looking pretty damn good. It's already killing Skadi, that's for sure. I think we all knew that was going to happen anyways, though. That's not a surprise. Skadi really didn't have much of a chance against this kind of weapon. And the core damage here is ridiculous, man. And I like that there's no shadows involved in this, right? That gives the numbers more validity, too. There he goes again. See, that's why I'm doing 5, man. This is exactly why I'm doing 5. Instead of doing 1, because you have shit like this that's gonna mess with the numbers completely. But I mean, look at this number-wise, it's looking really good. Okay, gonna avoid these for a little bit. Beauty of this weapon is I can run around and I can still shoot a core attack really quickly. I mean, honestly, guys, it's looking pretty damn good. I'm very curious to see what the other numbers are going to look like when I finish the rest of this. Now, this is a long test, guys. It's taking me a long time to do these tests, so I'm really hoping you guys do appreciate this. Remember to like, subscribe, do all that fun jazz. We've really slowed down on the subscriptions in this game, which is kind of, you know, not concerning for me, but same time, you know, I'm wondering what's going on. So I'm hoping that this kind of test kind of reminds you guys the content that I'm putting out for you on a constant basis. Oh, this is going to screw it over. This is going to screw it over completely. Yeah, see? This is why we do 5 tests. So there you guys go. First one right there, 68. I mean, looking pretty damn good. Still not the same level as Zeke's Fragment, clearly. And but still looking really good. 470. Now, I'll do the rest of these. I'll come back and show you number 5 when it's done, okay? I'll be right back. All right, ladies and gents, here we are. 76, 222, 217. Fairly consistent with the last 3 that I had done. The boss didn't seem to do anything really cool or, you know, knock me back too many times. So again, the RNG is going to play a factor here, but we got pretty good data for that. So we can definitely see it's close, but it's still Zeke's Fragment. So pretty much on par. Every time they release something brand new, that is a new meta. Netmarble just continues to do that. So we can safely assume that probably the new Demon Daggers is going to be the strongest weapon in the game when they come out. Probably overshadowing the Zeke's Fragment as well as the Phoenix Bow. But I just want to show you guys at least what's going on. Now, it's like almost exactly the same. So very consistent. So there you guys go. Roughly the same amount. So we'll again, 64 million, not bad. So we'll consider this the same as the Plum Sword and the Moonshadow Daggers. We're going to clump them together, all right? So we'll just do that as the testing. All right, guys, I'll be back with the other 5 for you, and then we're going to move on to the next weapon. All right, guys, we're back here again. So this is the Huntsman, believe it or not. Actually not doing too bad. I thought for sure the Huntsman would suffer because there's really no breaking here, which a lot of the buffs come from the breaking of a bar. We couldn't even break the Dragon's Bar if we tried because there's only solo me. So, but the numbers actually look fairly good. This is the last of the 5 that I did. So 54, the numbers are looking like this right here. So 51, 53, 51, 54, 54. So, I mean, it's averaging out and it's not doing too bad for a break weapon. It actually did better than the Skadi. Damn. That's sad, bro. That's really sad. Now, I don't know what the reasoning behind that is, but the numbers are there. So, like, the Skadi's not looking too good, even with that 1000% buff at 8.5. Of course, we can't freeze the opponent. That's the biggest issue, I think, happening right here with the Skadi. I believe that 8.5 buff, that damage comes from the freeze. I'm not 100% sure. I have to go back and double check that, but it's not looking too good for the Skadi. They're both A10s. They both have level 7. So if you do the Huntsman versus Skadi, the Huntsman just absolutely destroys it, which was kind of a surprise. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more weapons to go, guys. I'll be back with the rest of the results. I'll see you guys shortly. Alright guys, I wanted to do this with you, okay? This is going to be an interesting one. So this is Vulcan's Rage. With all the damn buffs they've given, I'm like, you know what? Let's give this a go and see if we actually pull off some decent damage. So I'm going to put this together with you. Now remember, like I did say in my testing, that there are going to be better sets for this weapon. This is a prime example of that. So the Guardian set, for example, will be a fantastic weapon or artifact system to use with this, because obviously you get more damage from the shield that you get from this weapon. This is also another scenario where I feel like this weapon suffers from no super armor. So you saw that knockback right there, right? Now this is test 1, of course, of 5, so I'm going to have better test results doing the next few that I do, but it's still sad to see how slow this weapon attacks. Even at A5 with the increased attack speed, this shit is going slower than molasses. Look at this. Look at this nonsense. Now, as soon as the shield pops up, obviously I don't get hurt by the knockback, so that's great, but that shield needs to go up right away. And I mean, at the end of the day, realistically, this weapon is too damn slow. They got to speed it up even more. Like, they have an attack speed for like the advancements, but like, let's be real, this is not enough attack speed. This is still, again, still slow as molasses, man. My grandmother, who's in the grave right now, would probably attack faster than this. This is craziness. And then this is another reason why I hate this fight, because sometimes this will happen, and that's, again, the reason why I'm doing 5 of them, right? I got to make up for some of these, like, ridiculous issues, like what you just saw right there. So, again, pumping this out. Let's see what we get. I wouldn't be surprised if this and the Demon Longsword are still considered the 2 worst weapons in the game. I'm very curious though to see if this does beat out Skadi, which will be very, very sad for Skadi, even with the buff. And you know what I'm doing this for, guys? Quite honestly, I really want to do this because I want the devs to see this. If they ever watch this video, they can kind of get a number count. I'm sure they're doing this themselves, to be honest, but it's nice to show them, like, hey, here's an actual number count for some of the weapons that you're buffing. It's still not enough, bro. So I'm hoping that this video reaches their eyes and ears, and they kind of get to see some of the numbers that are being shown, and then go back to the drawing board with some of these buffs, and just consider not just increasing the numbers, but also consider giving some of these weapons some extra, like, much needed love, like, again, super armor for some of the slower animation ones, or increasing some of these animations to make them just better overall, because this is ridiculous, man. Still, it's actually not doing too bad though. 43 million is much better than I thought I was going to get. Very similar to Skadi's numbers, and again, I think Skadi's, this is not a very good representation of Skadi, but it also should show the devs the limitations of, again, what I'm saying, you need to fix some of these weapons, because the limitations are really, really bad on some of these, and they need to be altered. If this beats out Skadi, bro, woo, this is going to be hell to be paid, because that weapon came out way later than this, but I feel like they're going to be very similar right now. If you look at it, and this dude's been moving around a lot too, so like that's a pretty big factor. If these guys stay still a little more, I think this number will look better. This is actually going to do better than some of the Skadi numbers. Yo, rip to Skadi, bro. Devs, y'all got to figure this out. Y'all, this is the first one right there, 53814038. So if I go back to Skadi's numbers, it's not looking good, guys. It's not looking good. So 53814. So 53814. 038. God damn, guys. God, that's higher than any Skadi number. I'm embarrassed for Skadi. All right, guys, I'll be back with the other ones. Give me a few minutes. All right, guys, we're going to check out the Grimoire now. So I want to do this one with you guys as well, too, just because I'm curious to see what these numbers are going to look like. The thing with the Grimoire is it's a very, very powerful stream of a weapon, and it actually does incredibly good damage. So I'm curious, though, to see what it's going to compare to the other weapons, because this is technically considered a universal weapon as well, right? A universal weapon being like one of the main weapons that will buff and debuff better than anything else out there. So it's like one of the ones that you kind of use not as a primary damage weapon, but more of a, in this case, buffing, debuffing weapon. And in our case, the erosion debuff is what we're looking at, right? So if this beats out Skadi, bro, I'm going to be pissed off as hell. Because right now, Skadi's just like, again, I'm going to go back and take a look at Skadi's advancements. I haven't checked it out in a while, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's not freezing. I could be wrong, so let me go back and check this. I keep saying that, but I can't. I'm just in awe here at how bad the weapon is. So again, devs, if you ever decide to watch this, I really do hope you guys kind of take a look at these numbers and be like, yeah, we got to take that weapon back to the drawing board, because like when it first came out, the numbers look good for me. And then as I started playing WOBL, because that came out, the numbers started looking like horrible, like really, really bad. And then other people started noticing it as well. And I mean, you guys just buffed it, and that buff should have been pretty significant. And we're still kind of looking at it, being like scratching my head right now, being like, why is this still so bad? So let's just see. Let's just see how this number looks. I'm curious to see if the Grimoire actually does do more damage or not. Okay, let's just let this guy do its thing. I like that he's just following me. It makes this like a lot easier than having to chase him all the way across the whole freaking board. There we go. Get this out. Yeah, we're not gonna break him. We know this, obviously. Let's do a couple of these shots. Get knocked back. It's all good. I'll be honest with you guys. Numbers are looking Skadi-ish. But again, this is a primary debuffing weapon. It's not really meant to be a strong weapon to use for damage. So I'm not surprised at the fact that this is not doing quite as much as some of the other ones, because again, it's really meant to be a universal weapon to make other weapons stronger. So, but still, I think it's going to be fairly close, and that's not a good sign, guys. In any way, shape or form, not a good sign. Okay, we're gonna do another quick little maneuver here. Pull another one of these off. Like you can't undermine the value of erosion. Like, it's so powerful, and you guys are aware that it's one of the main debuffing weapon for this fight itself. So even if it does match up to Skadi, it's still not a bad thing, because that just means Skadi needs even more. There you guys go. First attempt, 48,338. Let's put that in there. So 48,338. I'm gonna have to come back and do more of this. Obviously, I got 4 more to go, but I'll give you guys the full look at it after. Okay, 176. I wonder what the highest I'll get here is. Alright folks, we're back here again. So we're going to check out the Demon Longsword. That's right, my weakest SSR weapon in terms of advancements. Let's just see how it actually fares in this fight compared to the rest. Now, we are going to give it a little bit more love, obviously, because of the fact that it is an A7 with a lot weaker skills, etc. than the rest. So we'll give it like an extra 10% total damage increase in case it was an A10. Okay, I think that's a fair thing to do. We're looking at an extra 9% anyways from the advancement, plus a couple extra skills. Maybe you can give it 15% just to show it some love, right? But at the same time, I'm curious to see how much worse this is than every other weapon that is out there, if it is the worst weapon. Right now, you know, we got a couple surprise hits, got a couple surprise misses, and I'm hoping, again, this can help a lot of you guys kind of focus and, you know, rearrange your draws. I'm not talking about what you're wearing in your pants. In terms of your actual like summons, and kind of focus on different things if you were originally focusing on some things you may have thought was better than they actually are. So again, I really hope you guys do like, subscribe, do all that fun jazz for me. This is the kind of testing that I love to do. I actually had time today, so I was like, you know what? Forget it. We're gonna just go in and we're gonna put this together for everybody so people can check it out. Now remember, this test is not by any means perfect. Okay, so I don't want people to think that, you know, this is a perfect test and, you know, these results are, you know, set in stone. There's a lot of variables here, like a ton of variables, but some data is better than no data. I always say that, right? And it's, if the data makes sense and I'm keeping everything consistent where there's no shadow steps, it's all the same gear, all the same blessings, all the same, etc., same boss. I think it's fairly decent data to be able to use. But at the same time, guys, remember, like I said in the beginning, there are going to be some better options to have with each other. So some weapons will complement each other better, some sets will complement the weapons better, etc., right? But at the end of the day, it's just important to have something in place for you guys to see and just to be able to, like, you know, rely on when it comes down to like, what should I focus on next? Now, I think one of the biggest issues we're going to find in this game, and I've said this already in another video just previously, like a couple days ago actually, is that Netmarble is now creating a meta every single time something new comes out, which is not a very normal thing for a gacha company to do, to be honest. It's not abnormal, but it's also not normal either at the same time. And what I mean by that is, usually they allow the existing meta to kind of keep up for at least a couple months, and then they'll be like, okay, you know what, it's time to introduce something brand new and OP that you definitely want to go for and you can't miss, right? In our case, man, they do this every damn patch. Every patch there's a new weapon, so I'm almost convinced that the new demon daggers that are coming out are probably going to be the best weapon, probably finally trumping and beating out the Westwind as the best wind weapon in the game. But you guys can see here, this is actually not doing as bad as I thought it would. It's actually doing fairly well. 50 million for an A7, where, I mean, it's Vulcan Rage. Don't get me, it's like Vulcan's Rage quality, right? It's not like OP or anything, but it's doing a little better than I thought it would. So let's just go ahead and do this as well, just to give it a little more damage out there. Hey, you know what? We'll take it. 53.584. I mean, let's take a look at this compared to Vulcan's. Let's kind of do a little comparison here. Vulcan's Rage, 58. Oh, damn, bro. And that's an A10. So, I mean, confidently, I can say this might, the next 5, we'll see what the next 5 look like. 584, 966, 584, 966, 584, 584, 966. Is this correct? Let me just make sure I got everything here, guys. Sorry. Talking and doing this. 53, 584, 966. 53, 584, 966. Okay, so let's go back again. Put a little comma where they go. We got ourselves a little bit of number to work with here, guys. This is embarrassing for a lot of weapons that this is an A7, and it's actually keeping up with, I mean, again, Grimoire, I'm not really looking at DPS for it, but Vulcan's Rage, Huntsman, again, Huntsman is more of a utility breaking weapon as well, but hey, Demon Longsword. Looks like you're stepping it up a little bit. So we'll do the test the rest of these guys, and I'll be back, and then we just have one more weapon to do, and that'll be the end of the video, and we'll do a total summary at the end, and we'll give you guys the total results. All right, I'll be right back. All right, ladies and gents, this is the last run for the actual Demon Longsword. So 51,160. That's actually the worst run because the guy was flying around left and right. Did it about 3 or 4 times, so it kind of messed up my entire run. So the numbers are pretty consistent, though. If we look at it again, this is kind of what the other 4 runs have looked like. 5-4, 5-3, 5-2, 5-3. So this is just adding it to the now numbers. Again, this was probably the worst run I had with this, so I can confidently say 5-3 looks about right. Give it a 10, maybe 5-5, 5-5-ish. Give or take, right? I think that's what it's going to look like. 160751. Sorry, 160751. 160751. We have one. We have one left now. We have the Shadow Scythe left as the last weapon to do. I'm very tempted to do 1 or 2 attempts with Westwind as well, just to kind of see where it falls in the category. So I might add Westwind to the list. I know it wasn't supposed to be on there, but I'm just now curious. Westwind, A10. We're going to see kind of where it sits, right? So let me do the Scythe. I'll be right back. Now we have the Plum Sword. A lot of you guys were complaining it wasn't using the Plum Sword before. Now it is. So let's see where it sits in terms of the DPS echelon, and hopefully it's up there because it would suck if it actually dropped off that badly. All right, guys. I'll be right back. All right, guys. Here we go. Scythe is ready for action. Now, I can't test the Holy Spear just yet because none of us have an A5 version of it or an A10 version of it, but we'll get to that when I have a chance to. When I do get it, I'll definitely be testing it for you guys, letting you know how good it is. Now with this, a lot of you guys were saying you want to see the Plum Sword instead of the Moonshadow Dagger. So I'm going to do this one run with you. This is my first run with the Shadow Scythe, and we're going to see how well it does in comparison to last time. Okay, so last time we did this run, we did it against Zeke's Fragment. We all know Zeke's Fragment is better. There's no denying that at all whatsoever, but we're going to see if the numbers here look a little bit better now with the Moon Daggers. Without the Moon Daggers and with the Plum Sword instead, because Moon Daggers I find are still an incredible weapon for this, but some of you guys are saying that the debuff doesn't last long enough, which you have a very valid point, because this animation takes for freaking ever just to get done. I don't want to miss out on that damage, so I'm going to take those hits, and we're going to go to 70% real quick here. One more hit will take me to 70%, and yes, we will then get our crit. Now, I know a lot of you guys are saying you should get to 70% right away and then take advantage of it. There it is right there, but I think with my level of gear and passives and everything I got going on, it's really not a huge deal, but you guys now see I got the extra 25% going, so our crits will definitely land every single time, and we'll do a little bit more damage. Now you guys can see here, because it is a primary main DPS weapon, and I think a lot of people have mistaken something about the Scythe. It was always, for the longest time, considered one of the best weapons in the game. That has recently changed, obviously, and that's what happens with the meta, right? The meta changes. Weapons kind of get old. Where the hell am I? And you have to take into account that what was good before might not be good anymore. And this is not necessarily the case with the Scythe. It is still a really good weapon, but it definitely is not considered top tier anymore. I would say this is probably, I mean, we'll see what the numbers look like. It's probably top 3, 4 maybe weapon now in the game versus what it was before, which was the top weapon in the game for a while for just raw DPS purposes, right? Let's just see what we do here. Look, I mean, we're already killing out Skadi and stuff. So that's a good sign, obviously. But you guys can see here, obviously, it's not gonna like hold a stick to the Zeke's Fragment or the Phoenix Bow, as a matter of fact. So I mean, it's still gonna do well enough, but I would not put it as. And I've actually taken it off my top tier list. I put it as one of the. See right there, the super armor needs to happen, man. Lack of super armor, I think, is one of the biggest crux for this weapon. And I keep saying that, but they gotta add it, man. They really gotta add it. Still doing pretty well though. Like I have to say, like it still does fairly decent damage. It's definitely going to number 3 spot for sure. I'm confident to say that. I always have been about that at least. So let's get do his thing. 1, 2, 3, down we go. Okay, starting to become very predictable with his moves, so making my life a little easier. You guys can see your damage looks good though, man. Like still looks good. Still looks really, really good. Of course, there's a couple issues with the Scythe. One of the main reasons why it's a problem is the fact that you take way more damage whenever you take hits. But that 15% extra crit, or not crit, sorry, the 15% extra damage you do at A5 is huge, right? So not damage, sorry, attack. But you guys can see here, it's still one of the best weapons in the game. So don't let that fool you, right? 73, 840. Then that's not a perfect run either. So I'm still looking pretty good with the Plum Sword. But here, that was a much better run, obviously. So let's go 73. That's 73 million. Right? And yeah, I mean, the Moonshadow daggers are definitely like not as good, obviously, as I mentioned in some of my comments to you guys, but Zeke's is still way better. Like there's no question about it. So let me get some of these numbers in here. 73, 848, 348, 848, 348. Okay, we'll do a few more runs here with this, guys, and I'll be back with the total tally, and then I'm going to try Westwind and see what we get, and that'll round up the total damage. We'll do the total damage roundup and see which is the best weapon, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. And then we'll go from there. All right, guys, I'll be right back. All right, guys, this was the last run for the Scythe, and this was by far the best run. Everything was popping off. All the crits were landing. Everything was hitting. The boss wasn't moving very much. So 84. This is huge, actually. This is a very, very big difference between the rest of the fight that I've had, because you guys can see here the numbers were absolutely different all across the board. Then 84 all of a sudden happened, hitting it actually higher than anything Zeke's did. So is the Scythe still a powerhouse of a weapon? Maybe still number 2 and number 1. Number 2. Looks like number 2. So Plum Sword definitely did help. Obviously, Shadow Moon daggers aren't as versatile, but the Zeke's obviously is versatile with both the Shadow Moon daggers and the Plum Sword. So clearly number 1. But if we look at the total numbers, guys, here is how it looks when it goes from top to bottom. So I went from the highest to lowest marks. So number 1 is Zeke's Fragment. Number 2, Shadow Scythe, believe it or not. Not by much between the Phoenix Bow. Phoenix Bow was number 3. Number 4 was the Plum Sword and Moonshadow daggers. Number 4, sorry, that was number 4. And 4 and 5, I guess. Number 5, I gave it that extra 10% that I promised you guys, or I guess 11%. So this gave it 291, just to make up for the fact that it's an A7 and the skill 7, obviously, as well, too. Gave it number 6, Vulcan's Rage number 7, Huntsman number 8, Skadi number 9, and the Grimoire number 10. I think that pretty much rounds it up, or I guess number 11. Actually, number 10. Yeah, that makes sense. We have 10 SSR weapons. So there you guys go. Remember a couple things that we did. We did the Plum Sword pretty much for everything. We kept the gear the same. No stat differences. We gave a couple different percentages here and there for them. We did 5 full runs as JINWOO only, and this is what the results were. So for those who look like Shadow Scythe worked really well with the Moonshadow daggers, again, this is why I did the testing to show you guys. Some of the numbers were pretty off. Like, look, 82 versus 75, 81 versus 72, 77 versus 73. But then you had a big one here where the Scythe actually beat out Zeke's. But then, of course, there was some problem with Zeke's not hitting, targeting, the boss moving a lot, etc. Right? So I think it's fairly comfortable to say that Zeke's Fragment is the best weapon in the game, also being an A9 versus an A10. The Shadow Scythe is still top 3 for sure. The Phoenix Bow, I still think needs a little bit of a buff. Clearly, you guys can see here, it's not hitting as hard as the Shadow Scythe was. But again, the Shadow Scythe was paired with a Plum Sword, as was the Phoenix Bow. So remember, not every weapon here is going to pair well with the Plum Sword. It's just not going to pair well all the time, right? So that's the kind of thing to remember as well. And things like the Grimoire, this is a debuffing weapon. It's a universal debuffing weapon. It's not meant to be a DPS weapon. So these things are expected. The Skadi, though, it definitely needs some love, bro. This is getting out of hand. This thing's out of control. It's so bad. Thank you for watching. Go like, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.